President Trump's 25% tariffs on, well, most everything coming from Mexico and Canada already having a real-world impact. Distributors are seeing higher prices for things like avocados, tomatoes, and more. And fruits and vegetables from Mexico aren't the only items getting pricier. CNN's Natasha Chen has been looking into this for us. She's joining us now. Natasha, what are you learning?
Well, this importer and distributor here in Los Angeles prepared for this moment, knowing the tariffs were going to come. They actually ordered a bunch of avocados to arrive on Monday before the tariffs took effect. So these pallets of avocados that you see were at original price, but had they ordered them to arrive today, they would have paid 25% more out of pocket for this to cross the border. Now, the limes, however, these ones did come in today, and they're already more expensive than the same box would have been on Monday, because on Monday it would have cost this company about $30 to bring in each box. Add on that 25% tariff, now it's $37, $38, and of course that cost is passed along. Their customers are other distributors and supermarkets, and so some of them are actually right across the street opening their doors right now, getting ready for their clients, customers potentially from restaurants around Los Angeles coming to them to find produce. So you can see how this cost just trickles on to pass on to the next person and the next person, ultimately to the consumer. Here's what the sales manager, Jaime Herrera, said about this moment of uncertainty.
It is hard to sleep at night because you're thinking, okay, how are we going to do this? I go, are we going to have enough customers? As it is, like you mentioned earlier, ICE is on the streets. People are not buying. Consumers are limiting themselves. And we're bringing in all these products, not knowing whether we're going to be able to sell it or not. And we're not only that, but the savings that we have on the side, we're now bringing it out because we have to pay those tariffs that we have. So it's decapitalizing a little bit. And so that's what's concerning, is that we're going to get decapitalized really quick.
And of course, there are now retaliatory tariffs as well, retaliatory actions after Canada started pulling U.S.-made liquor from its shelves earlier. The CEO of Brown-Forman, which makes Jack Daniel's whiskey, said that the move was disproportionate. Here's the quote: "That's worse than a tariff because it's literally taking your sales away." Now, of course, depending on the product, depending on the actual bit of produce, there could be different winners and losers in this. If American growers are making the same thing as the Mexican growers in the same season, maybe they can stand to benefit short term, but all of this is very unpredictable, hard to do business for the people trying to make it work.
Let's talk more about tariffs. A tariff detour from President Trump. A 1-month reprieve from the tariff slapped on all vehicles coming from Mexico and Canada. While the 3 biggest U.S. automakers now have a 30-day break, the 25% tariffs on all other goods coming from the countries still remain. That includes oil. The U.S. is Canada's largest energy customer. The U.S. received about 97% of Canadian oil exports in 2023. Most of those exports come from Alberta, Canada's largest oil producer. Joining me right now is the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith. Premier, thank you very much. So where things stand today, does a 1-month pause on auto tariffs change things for your province?
I was just looking at your pretty grim jobs number, and I can tell you it's only going to get worse in March. I mean, you've already had 100,000 private sector job losses in the first 2 months of the year. And now with these tariffs overlaid, it's creating a dynamic where instead of talking about how we can each buy more from each other, so both of us can benefit from higher job growth, now a tariff war creates the dynamic where each nation is going to buy less from each other. And that may include oil and gas, but if it doesn't include oil and gas immediately, then it's just going to be higher costs. I've seen some of the analysis that 40 cents a liter, or pardon me, 40 cents a gallon is going to be the increase in the amount of gasoline prices at the pump that relies on Canadian oil for the supply. So this isn't good for American consumers. It's not good for American job creators or those who need to work. And I think it's only going to get worse as long as these tariffs stay in place.
What is it going to mean for people in Alberta?
I can tell you that because we have 4.3 million barrels of oil, we've got access to the West Coast through a brand new pipeline, Trans Mountain. We also, our oil goes all the way down to the Gulf Coast. If the Americans don't want to buy our products, if that's part of the solution is that they want to buy less from us, then we're going to have to look for new markets for our oil and gas, for our uranium, for our nickel, for all of our critical minerals, for our electricity. And again, I don't think that that's the intention of what American job creators want. I think they want those raw materials so they can create good American jobs, so they can create American goods that the world can buy. But that is unfortunately the reality of what we're seeing. As long as these tariffs stay in place, we're going to have to start looking for new markets. I'd prefer to work with the Americans on increasing the amount that we sell, but that doesn't seem to be in the cards right now.
Where this started was, as the Trump's trade advisor said to me often, this is a drug war, not a trade war. Donald Trump said after a call with the Canadian Prime Minister that efforts to slow fentanyl trafficking across the U.S.-Canada border is still, quote unquote, not good enough. Setting aside the fact that less than 1% of the fentanyl coming into the United States came through Canada, that clearly does not matter to him. Is there more that you and your province can do on that front, do you think?
Our province has really met the objectives. We're putting $30 million into interdiction teams for contraband smuggling, including tobacco, which is a problem we know. We've got another $30 million that we've got sheriffs at the border with drugs, sniffer dogs, drones, and Black Hawk helicopters. We've been doing more commercial vehicle inspections. And in point of fact, we've actually found cocaine and crystal meth coming up from America. So we have a North America-wide drug problem. If you think it is just Canada and Mexico, you'd have to believe there are no cartels or organized crime or meth labs happening in the United States. We know that to not be true. So we can only do a portion of the work in making sure that we're addressing this egregious drug death problem. The Americans have to do some of the work internally themselves and can't just blame their neighbors for that. This is a North America-wide problem, and America included.
Which raises the question of what is good enough and what is the marker that needs to be met in order for all of these tariffs to be lifted once again. What I do want to ask you that one way you are responding is I saw that you're pushing all liquor stores in the province to pull American-made alcohol. The CEO of Jack Daniel's parent company just this morning called the move to pull the bottles disproportionate. Here's the quote: "That's worse than a tariff because it's literally taking your sales away." Worse than a tariff. Does that make you think twice about the move?
Well, I guess what we're seeing with the tariffs, what's the purpose of them? The purpose of them is so that American businesses buy fewer Canadian products. So our reaction is, well, if the Americans aren't going to buy products from our Canadian companies, we have to. And so that means that we should be buying more Canadian beer and more Canadian spirits and more Canadian wine. And so that's the reality of what we're facing. We're also looking at all of our procurement. Government buys a lot of goods and does a lot of contracts through the provincial level, federal level, municipal level, school board level. And we're asking them to do the same thing. If our Canadian companies are going to be heard, it's the best way we can help them is to redirect our purchasing for products that are available here, produced by Canadian suppliers. Again, it's not ideal. That is just going to exacerbate American job losses. It's going to reduce the amount of dollars going into the American economy in order to create additional jobs. I think it's important to remember, Canada is the largest consumer of American goods of anyone in the world, even though we're only 1/10 your size. And what the reality of the tariffs is doing is it's causing us to look for other places to buy our products. So the sooner they're gone, the better. It'll be better for both economies, and I hope that happens very quickly.
Well, we will stand by on that. Premier Danielle Smith, thank you very much for your time.